Good morning to all of you who have joined us, and I see we still have some in the audience who are joining us. Welcome to this installment of our 10 webinar series. As we have started this year, we chose certain topics that we wanted to focus on. But I'll be touching on some of those. This is Zolani Zonyane, currently the head of editorial from the Municipal Edge magazine, and the Municipal Edge stable, because there are many things coming in 2024 that we will be exploring as the entity. But let me welcome our audience, those who have joined us from various parts of South Africa and perhaps the globe, because sometimes we often have in our audience people from outside South Africa. And perhaps before we start, for a strange reason today, my video is acting up, and I was engaging with the team before we started, and then we opted that let it be off, but the conversation will continue. And as we get to our conversation today, it will be unjust if I don't thank the team from the Municipal Edge for the sterling work that we've done this year. We deserve to clap for our hands, and of course Dan from Future Cities Africa, together with your team, we've done great. Yes, we might have missed a couple of the webinars we scheduled, but also I will be getting to that. We've come far, and here we are in this webinar series of ours. And as we get to the gist of today, it will be amiss if I will not thank SIGFARO, that being the Chartered Institute of Government Finance, Audit and Risk Officers, together with the South African Local Government Association, because the work that we do as the Municipal Edge and Future Cities Africa is in complement to the initiatives that are done by these two institutions and even other institutions and institutes that we might not be mentioning this morning. But these two are key to the work that we do, to the service that we are rendering. And it's important also to share with you that I'm currently joining you from Cape Town, because we had a SIGFARO annual conference that took place from the 24th to the 26th, which was yesterday. And then I decided to stay for more days, but also taking this particular webinar from Cape Town, just across where I used to work in number 7 Whale Street. This is where I'm situated today. The theme of the conference itself was more around iron sharpens iron, learning from best practices. And again, that resonates with our conversation today in terms of the case study that we will be exploring. And I've got two guests with me who are really doing some academic work around the Section 139 interventions and interventions broadly. But they will come in at a later stage just to share their own experiences, their own findings in terms of the work that we do. But once more, welcome to our audience. Feel at home. As we normally do, we've got the chat function, the question and answer function, that you can use to interact with us during this particular conversation. As we get to our conversation, and as I've indicated, we had a SIGFARO conference. Let me take time to congratulate Dr. Emmanuel Ngobo, a former, I can safely say so now, Chief Editor of the Municipal Edge, who was crowned the president of SIGFARO, that being the Chartered Institute of Government Finance, Audit and Risk Officers. That was yesterday, less than 24 hours from where we are. Doc, we are proud of you. We will continue supporting the initiatives that SIGFARO brings to the table. And as I've indicated, as it relates to other programs, as you assume the presidency of this, I would say, prestige institute, as it relates to public finance officials or within that particular space. But again, to thank Cheryl, as we can see her behind Doc, who is the immediate past president of the Institute. Thank you for the great conference, Cheryl and team. As we can see, some of the board members behind or next to Doc and Cheryl, who really have contributed to the conference that we just had, but most importantly, who will be supporting Doc as he takes this, I would say, very important role in trying to shape our local government. Yes, the city of Cape Town was a great host. Thank you to the city, but most importantly, the partners in TSO Consulting to SIGFARO for the past number of years. That partnership has grown stronger. But most importantly is personally from my end to thank TSO Consulting Group for hosting us because we really enjoyed ourselves on Tuesday in one of those events where we network, exchange ideas. But as the Municipal Edge, we are looking forward to our future partnerships, future collaborations as we try to shape local government. Then, as we started this year, as I've indicated, we have had quite a number of topics that we focused on. And yes, in some of the areas, specifically on the dates, we could not really keep to the dates that we planned at the very beginning of the year. But what is most important, we are here today, the 27th of October, where we are exploring the right approach to successful municipal interventions, specifically focusing on Section 139 of the Constitution, where we will be dealing with the case study, selecting one of the municipalities here in the Western Cape. And I'll get to that point, just the background of how that came about. And as I've indicated, we had this plan for the year, but for the 23rd of June, we didn't have that particular conversation due to competing needs, competing schedules, and then we said, perhaps let's shelve it. There is 2024, definitely. That topic will be part of what we will be focusing in 2024. We also promised or planned to have a session on integrated development planning, which also could not take place. But what is important about this one, as I've indicated that I'm in Cape Town, I will be dealing with this topic on Monday. And if you happen to have time, tune into Kisima Radio, which is a newly established community radio station situated in Khayelitsha. And when we share all this information, we will be touching perhaps on some of this particular item in terms of that particular conversation. And again, this will also be a topic that will form part of what we'll be doing in 2024 as part of our plan. But I think the team at Municipal Edge, then Future Cities Africa, we've got Sangofa in the graphics. Let me take this opportunity to thank you because we are in the second last of our planned topics. We've come this far and we are still going strong. But most importantly, it is to thank our audience, because without you, without your participation, your contributions, you taking time out of your busy schedule, it means a lot to us. But most importantly, your contributions, exchanging ideas and building this local government sector, it's something that will go a long way, not now, but also for future. As I've indicated, when it chose the topic in December of 2022, it was really to look at what is it that we are getting wrong as a country when we talk about Section 139 interventions. And again, we still get that aspect wrong in many times, yet there is case law that dates back to 2010, as I will be touching now on some of the aspects of that case law, because if we look at a most recent Constitutional Court judgment as it related to the city of Tshwane, because that intervention was ventilated up with the Constitutional Court. And when the Constitutional Court looked at that particular case, and I just took an extract from the judgment, where the majority expressed the view that the issues that were before them at that point were not only important to the parties that were part of that particular, I'll say, court process, but also they've got an impact on the relationship between the municipalities as institutions and provincial governments throughout the country. It's not something that is prevalent maybe to a specific province, but it's a problem that we have countrywide in terms of those relationships. But what also came through very importantly in that judgment was the fact that it needs to be stressed, that's what the judges said of the Constitutional Court, that the potential prejudice and urgency lie not in the harm suffered by the municipality itself, that becomes part of that particular intervention, or the municipal councillors who have got a huge role and a very important role in running our municipalities. But in the continued disruption of basic essential services to the people and communities the municipality is supposed to serve. That part of that, the paragraph 51 of the Constitutional Court judgment also aligns exactly to what, as the municipal edge, we advocate for, because we say we are leading service delivery for the people through these platforms where we engage as practitioners, and even beyond practitioners, because in the audience, we don't only have practitioners, but how do we change the game of service delivery to benefit the population of South Africa? But also as part of that paragraph, which links to what I was saying earlier on, there has been case law as far back as 2011 in terms of a case in the Western Cape between the Premier and the Western Cape government versus Overberg District Municipality. A case that was ventilated up to the Supreme Court of Appeal, but I'll get to the details probably as we go along. That was in 2011. In this judgment of Tshwane, what the judges said indicated that the applicants argued that the Supreme Court of Appeal has already weighed in on some of the interpretation of and application of Section 139. But again, those are some of the questions we need to really ask ourselves more often. With the case law, what makes it not to tap in what is already available as we make these decisions of intervening in municipalities? And perhaps the right question should be, what motivates these interventions? are they really genuine in all cases? Because in the case of Overberg District Municipality in 2010, as I've indicated, there was this particular judgment that came really from originally from the Western Cape High Court, but it was ventilated to the Supreme Court of Appeal. The summary of the SCA, which is the Supreme Court of Appeal, indicates that the council was dissolved by the Provincial Executive based on erroneous interpretation of Section 139. As I've indicated just recently, I think that's the root cause of how do we look at the law itself and how do we make the law work for the people. But then that appeal from the Western Cape High Court was dismissed by the Supreme Court of Appeal because it was the finding of the High Court in the Western Cape that the way that a law was applied or that section was applied was not really correct. And some of the reasons that really made that to be the case, especially now if you look at the judgment, was that Section 139 of the Constitution does permit and requires provincial governments to supervise the affairs of local governments. And in the next slide, I will then try to demonstrate how that supervision happens, and then to intervene when things go, or that's part of the judgment that really came from the Supreme Court of Appeal in dismissing what was an appeal by the provincial government then. And this is one of, when this case developed for the benefit of our audience and those who will be accessing this particular video, I spent some time working for the Western Cape Provincial Treasury. And when this intervention in Overberg took place, I always held an argument to say at that point that any court that will look at this particular intervention, it is likely to rule in the fashion that the Western Cape High Court did. And also when the appeal was made, I still held the same view to say that appeal is not going to make it, because the first question, and if the judges read Section 139, before you intervene, you ought to have provided support to the municipality in question, because if you look at Section 139 of the Constitution, it has got a number of subsections, and specifically in the case of Overberg that I referred to. Similarly, the case of Oudtshoorn Municipality, which I will be touching on just shortly. The subsection that was used there was subsection 4, because both municipalities, despite many governance failures that were building up, financial management failures, service delivery, they failed to approve the budget by the 30th of June in that particular year, which in the case of Overberg, that was way back in 2010. Then in the case of Oudtshoorn that I'll be referring to, that was 30th of June 2015. Section 139 subsection 4 really is around the lever for the provincial government to intervene when a municipality fails to approve a budget or any other revenue-raising measures that give effect to the budget and all the related matters. Then it says the relevant provincial executive must intervene by taking any appropriate steps to ensure that the budget and everything else are approved. Now, when we read the law, and I would say it's our general challenge, when we read those sections in 139 of the 139 of the Constitution, we are quick to go to the dissolution part of the council, which again, the reasoning of the courts has been since the Overberg case that I referred to, and then fast forward to the city of Tshwane. The question has always been, can you demonstrate what kind of support has been provided to these municipalities before taking what is deemed as a drastic action of dissolving the council? And for the purpose of the audience, I then said, let me put this particular subsection in this way. As we read the law, let's not read it to the latter part of this section 139.4, for an example, that talks to the dissolution. If you read it in the sense that, firstly, yes, intervention is required, but that support that must be provided, engaging the municipality, bringing all the other departments that needs to be on board to provide that support. That's the first point. It's only when the support initiatives that are being brought to the table by various entities doesn't yield the results that we seek to achieve, then the intervention, which is the second step of dissolving the council to a point of appointing an administrator, it becomes secondary. And all this case law that I've referred to, starting from the Overbeck district municipality judgment way back in 2010, and fast forward the city of Tshwane not so long ago, the judges relied on the fact that when those decisions were taken, it was more like there was a rush to the dissolution of those particular councils, other than to look at how can we best support these municipalities for them to be able to deliver the services, which is the key function of the municipalities. As I get to the actual case study that will then drive the conversation today, I've indicated I worked in the Western Cape Provincial Treasury for quite a number of years before I left in 2018 for Gauteng Treasury, of which one of the projects that I got involved in when the provincial government intervened in Oudtshoorn in 2015, there was a responsibility that was put on my table to work with the team within provincial government, but also to work with the municipality in coming up with a financial recovery plan, which is part of those actions that will follow the intervention. Then the law dictates that let there be a financial recovery plan. And let me say the way we approached it was a case of working with the CFO. And I was fortunate to have a CFO who was acting at that point in time in Oudtshoorn Municipality, who had an experience in developing the financial recovery plans, I'll say, from his past life. And when we had an engagement, he then said, Zolani, allow me to draft the recovery plan. We will exchange notes before we can actually say we've got a fully fledged plan as expected by the provincial executive, which was a fundamentally good thing for me because that was taking ownership, which is also something that I always advocate. It doesn't matter which sphere of government. If we don't have those collaborations with our municipalities that we work with, that understanding of working together in partnership, supporting each other, if we adopt that approach, I believe as a country, we can go a long way. Then with Oudtshoorn, what was key was basically first identifying in the process of the developing the financial recovery plan was to identify the principal strategic objective of the plan itself, looking at the key priority areas that I will touch on just briefly, and set out specific intervention projects, which will then begin to address both financial and institutional problems that we identified as a team in trying to help or assist Oudtshoorn Municipality, but most importantly with the mandatory parameters that we looked at that particular point to say, if you are talking of, for an example, revenue management, expenditure management, what type of parameters we need to set up front so that we can start measuring the success of the plan itself, and also whether we are addressing the real problems. Some of the key components that we really looked on as the team was more the review and the implementation of expenditure management systems, because through expenditure budgeting, that's where we actually address issues of service delivery. We also looked at revenue management systems more to maximize revenue generation possibilities, enhancing levels of customer care, reviewing and implementing cash and debt management strategies and practices, because in the next slide or two, I will be talking specifically to this case where there was really a serious problem on how the municipality at that point was, I won't say a debt trap, but we will see as we get to that point. The reviewing of and implementing internal controls, systems of delegation, specifically with financial management, but broadly within the institution, targeting other areas like your technical services, your corporate services, but also implementing asset management through an integrated infrastructure and asset management plan. We also focused on governance issues, governance practices, specifically in supply chain management, and also ensuring that we had proper controls and risk management practices that were adopted and being implemented by the municipality. Also looking at the organizational structure, the redesign of the organization, compiling job descriptions, and how job evaluations were done. So it was a comprehensive type of an exercise, not only focusing on finance issues. Hence, when we had an engagement with Felix Lotter, who was an acting CFO then in Oudtshoorn, we then said we can't confine the financial recovery plan to finance issues. Let's have a holistic approach in terms of how we deal with other institutional matters, because we can get financial management issues right, but the institution itself will still be in serious troubles. Hence, this comprehensive look on the components of the financial recovery plan, including reviewing information technology infrastructure, accounting and budget reforms, and also looking at the long-term liabilities and concluding payment arrangements with customers like your ESCOMs and other creditors that the municipality was really in trouble with. And then as part of the recovery plan, as I referred to earlier on, this is just part one extract on the mandatory limits that we introduced as budget parameters. We see budget management, asset management, and utilization, data management. If you go to the document itself, which is a public document, you will see other functional areas and the parameters that we agreed with the then acting CFO at that point, which is Mr. Lotter, to say if we are to get things right, these are the parameters that we need to stick on as we develop the financial recovery plan. Then fast forward to 2017, and thanks to Western Cape Provincial Treasury, I happened to enroll for this particular course or study with the University of Stellenbosch Business School when I was doing my postgrad studies. And one of my assignments was on principles of operations. I then took Oudtshoorn to develop a case study that can be a reference point for future. And at that point in time, to be honest, I didn't know we will get to this conversation today. But it was to demonstrate how Western Cape government, working with other national departments like COPTA, National Treasury, other national departments, together with the municipality, how the situation changed in Oudtshoorn. It goes back to how that intervention was handled. Because yes, there was a decision that an intervention was necessary. It was in 2015, and we will all recall that 2016 was local government elections. One sensible decision that was taken was, yes, the law says let's dissolve the council because we've tried all that we could. And let me say, the Western Cape government tried, because I remember after the Overberg case, even the way we were developing the support plans to municipalities, it became different. The way we were interacting and actually providing support to municipalities, it was different. So 2015, provincial government of the Western Cape was in a position to prove that we have provided support to Oudtshoorn Municipality, but we could not really get the municipality to a point where it should be, and hence the intervention. And as I was saying, an option to dissolve the council was there, but then a decision was taken to say, let's not dissolve the council, because in a year's time, it's local government elections. Because if the council is dissolved, by law, by elections must be conducted, which was going to be disruptive alone. Then an administrator was appointed with a council in full swing, but the council was stripped of all its powers. Then they were conferred to the administrator, which was then supported by various support teams, as I've indicated, from the provincial government of the Western Cape, with all the relevant departments that ought to have provided that support, supporting the administrator. The national departments were on board on that particular initiative. And one of the decisions also, because there were so many acting arrangements at executive management level, which was also a game changer, was to say all those who are in acting capacities must go back to their original positions. Then there was an arrangement with the district municipality, currently the Garden Route district municipality, to say, let's identify resources that we can get from one of the local municipalities to occupy key critical positions of the accounting officer, as well as the chief financial officer. And we had those two resources who were in Oudtshoorn for 2 days in a week in supporting not only the intervention, but the implementation of the recovery plan. But looking at that, which is a second key decision that I would say was a sensible decision by the Western Cape government, was to go to that level to say, how as government institutions, we can support each other and work together in resolving these particular problems. It was for that reason, even the financial recovery plan itself was developed between myself and Mr. Felix Lotter, who was the acting CFO. And of course, it had to go through all the processes in terms of approval, but even before approval, opening the financial recovery plan for comments and all the related processes, which was really a learning exercise for me as well. And it's for that reason, post that intervention, looking at the success of Oudtshoorn, which I will get to in a short while, just taking one measure from that provincial intervention of cash and cash equivalents, for an example. When the Western Cape Provincial Government intervened, as I've indicated, in 2015, Oudtshoorn Municipality was in an overdraft situation of 47.5 million, which was bad because any finance officer or even a non-finance officer who is either with us in this webinar will tell you, in terms of the law, municipalities, yes, they can take overdraft as short-term borrowing, but one of the key principles, by the end of the financial year, which is the 30th of June, that short-term loan or overdraft must be settled. The law is clear on that one. But here we were in Oudtshoorn in 2015, 1st of July, when it was clear that the municipality did not approve a budget. Oudtshoorn Municipality was sitting at an overdraft of 47.5 million, which was part and parcel of the plan that we took on board to say, how do we deal with the bankers at that point in time to make arrangements for that overdraft, but also to improve the financial health of Oudtshoorn Municipality. As you can see, immediately the following year, 2016, the overdraft situation was reversed, and you can see the graph over the years, the cash and cash equivalents improving. But then one would ask, what happened in 2021, which is your 2020-2021 financial year? What happened there? The accounting officer who then became appointed to Oudtshoorn, Mr. Alan Paulsen, as I've indicated, both him and the acting CFO then, when we intervened, were from one of the local municipalities within that particular district. From what I learned, they left both in that particular financial year. And immediately that showed in how the finances performed. There are other measures that we can look at, but this is a perfect measure also to say when there is instability at that particular level, sometimes it shows in the finances. And we can see 2021, 2022, a slight improvement just on this measure. And what I will do as we share this presentation, I will update for 2022, 2023 to check from the draft annual financial statements, what is the status specifically in the cash flow as it relates to this particular measure. So as I've indicated, this was just to lay the basis for this conversation this morning, also to demonstrate that where the approach is thought through, there is a sensible engagement amongst all the stakeholders that are involved, and then they become on the same page on what needs to take place. These interventions, we can make most out of them, other than to be exposed currently to what we currently know as interventions in terms of Section 139 that are failing, and as the courts have declared, they are failing because when we approach them, it's like we already have an end goal of dissolving councils without really reading the law thoroughly to say, what do we do first before we get to that particular last step, which is the dissolution? And that's what the courts have argued to say, if you can prove that you've provided support, then that support has failed to change the situation around, then you can start progressively moving towards the dissolution of the council. And probably in 2024, another area that we need to explore, specifically if we'll read Section 139, subsection 1 of the Constitution, there are other things that need to happen, which do not happen. But then as we deal with that particular case, in 2024, as I've indicated, we will then delve deeper on how do we then begin change the situation around. And as I'm ushering in my two panelists, as I've indicated, it's not only myself, and also it wouldn't be nice just to be me who is engaging with you. I've got two colleagues who are currently involved in some academic work, specifically around this particular topic of Section 139 of the Constitution, the interventions themselves. We've got with us today Sisndilakazi Dinga, and ironically, I also worked with her at some time when I was in the Western Cape Provincial Treasury, who's currently with the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. She will introduce herself as she takes the mic, but also we've got Mr. Andile Jakala, a seasoned CFO, let me say. But again, when I was in the Western Cape Provincial Treasury, I happened to work with him. And then as I moved to Gauteng, he left me in the Western Cape and went to Gauteng. We also managed to work together when I was in Gauteng Treasury. He will also come in to share his own experiences and also touch on the current work academically that he's doing in this particular space of Section 139 interventions. And then we'll open up the conversation to you as the audience. Keep your questions coming, your comments, your views on the subject, and again, indicating what is it that we can do better, because as the Municipal Edge, Future Cities Africa, and our partners that we support, as I've indicated earlier on, we decided as the Municipal Edge from the beginning of this year, let's move from talking about the ideas, what are the challenges. We all know what actions do we put in place to ensure that we deal with these particular challenges. And today, it's also about that, to say, how do we begin to use the information at our disposal, to use the data at our disposal, to use the successes, like the case of Western Cape government in Oudtshoorn, to better change the trajectory of our municipalities. And on that note, Mamutinga, let me welcome you, greet our audience, and then just briefly introduce yourself, and then you can just get to what you are busy with in terms of this work around Section 139s. And you can also cross-reference to this case of Oudtshoorn on how best we can tackle these Section 139 interventions for the betterment of municipalities, but most importantly, to ensure that municipalities do serve our communities, as that is only their business and nothing else. Mamutinga, over to you and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Zonyane. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You may go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I welcome the platform that is afforded to me by the Municipal Edge. My name is Ndilakazi Dinga. I am working for DPME. I am working as a local government specialist at DPME, and I've been working with municipality for the life now, from the financial perspective to the whole governance of municipalities. In addition to that, I'm also working and studying with Stellenbosch University for a master's paper. My topic there is about the unsuccessful Section 139 interventions. It's quite concerning. Being in the presidency has also given me the opportunity to understand the pressure from the government's perspective in terms of what are we doing as the society, as the business, as the supporters of municipalities, employees, and governors in the local government sphere about the crisis that is there in the municipality. It takes us back to think about our roles in terms of Section 154 and 139. Just to step aside from my introduction of myself, I would like to then just drag you back to as to why we have this crisis and why we can't really see through ourselves after all the frameworks, the constitutional framework in terms of Section 139, that seeks to address the situation in the municipalities. Somehow I would say that it's actually a problem that is very much underestimated in terms of the support that is supposed to be given to the municipalities, because it has become a problem of municipal officials rather than a country problem. For me, the problem goes way back in terms of how we have introduced our programs of intervention in terms of 154 in the municipalities. You'd remember the rush we had, how we introduced our last programs, Sienza Manje programs, and all these Section 154 programs, which were, in fact, were implemented in good faith, but rather had also other unintended consequences, which are now appearing through Section 139. And those are now being looked at as issues that we need to intervene into. So basically, in my studies, I have sought to go deeper to say that why are we here? Why are we thinking that Section 139 is problematic? How did we get here? So for just introduction is to say, maybe we should take a step back and see if all other programs are, when I counted there about 10 of them that we introduced in municipalities in terms of Section 154 to correct the situation, or rather enhance the capacity of those municipalities. But when we introduced those Section 154 or interventions, we didn't consider the fact that as and when we introduce each one of them, there's a structural change in that municipality. There's a financial change in structure of how we are financing the municipalities. There's change in formulas of how we are funding those municipalities. There's increase in capacity in terms of human capacity in terms of the programs that come with those projects. So basically, we have been neglecting the basis of why we are here in terms of Section 139 now. Why are we putting emphasis on Section 139? But the topic of the day is, how do we do this right? I want to go back to your presentation, Mr. Zonyana, in terms of some of the challenges that we have. You are talking about the Overbeck district case study. I've looked at that case study from a student like myself. The bigger question, and that which also was the view of the judgment, was that from a citizen perspective, a municipality could not approve a budget within the time frame, that is by the 30th of June. Therefore, we must just destroy everything to recreate it again because we missed the date. We didn't look at as to whether there was capacity to do that or not. Why didn't we do that? We literally look at the Constitution and then thought that the date is the matter. That was the emphasis for me from the judgment, to say, could it only, that's why they interpreted, in my view, as the misinterpretation. Could it be only because of the date that we then need to dissolve everything and then move over and recreate that municipality? So I'm also trying to say, I don't really think that there is a straight answer for everything in the local government sphere. I also don't think that one policy sorts out everything else within the spectrum of the local government sphere. For some municipalities, the dissolving of council is necessary so that the administration can then be managed differently to reorganize the organization. What we sometimes seem to underestimate is the understanding of the intervention itself, what it does to the structure of the municipality. You can imagine when a municipality is declared dysfunctional, and then you say the very same dysfunctional organization, we are just going to put in a 200-page document called the Financial Recovery Plan. The very people who put that municipality in a dysfunctional state must still take over that very plan and implement it successfully. It's quite a difficult scenario, but I'm not saying where are the answers. But these are the intricacies of intervention that we need to look at in terms of recovering our municipalities from the states where they are. So that is one area I wanted to latch into in terms of whether the dissolution of council or non-dissolution is an answer or not. So that is one area we need to look into in terms of the uniqueness of the problems and the issues that led the municipality to the state of dysfunctionality. The second one I would like to talk to in terms of your presentation is on your slide, which talked to cash and cash equivalents. That slide is a clear indication also of the economic trajectory of the country at large. If I look at it, it was 2015, it's down there in the red, and it goes up to 2020, and then the 2020 bar is the highest. It's where the municipality had, I would say, sufficient cash and cash equivalents. But after that, it still goes down. So you would know what happened in 2020. COVID came into our country, and then the graph as well there is showing that things did change economically in the country. So at large, for me, we also need to consider the economic circumstances of our environment. For myself, I do work with all municipalities in the country, so I have a bird's eye view in terms of how the provinces are working. For instance, some municipalities are surviving through mines. So regardless of what's going on in the country at large, but that specific area could suffer because a mine perhaps is closed, or else some major revenue income source of a particular province or a particular municipality is suffering at the stage. Therefore, the situation might then have to change. So while we implement Section 139 as well, we should be considerate of the global as well as country issues that are happening. In terms of that graph that is showing there, I can tell you now, it shows me the three pillars of suffering that we have experienced in the country. For instance, during the 2007 and 8, there was a financial meltdown. So you would understand some municipalities survived with those with muscles, but some of them, the majority, went down. Hence, I could see from that graph that the 2015 was down. And in 2012-13, there was an issue of climate change, particularly in the Western Cape. There were issues of no water and so forth. So that was another element that probably drained municipal finances in that regard, because water is also a source of revenue in municipalities. And of course, the 2020 COVID-19. So basically, it's quite difficult to answer the question, how to get it right. But all I can say, we must be considerate of the major issues, which is one, politics in the municipality. Because the role of the political office is very important, particularly their appetite to recover from the situations they find themselves into. Secondly, the issue of financial discipline. As you rightfully said, so the financial discipline and understanding of what the MFMA is saying, because it is a good framework in terms of guiding how we supposed to manage our finances. That financial discipline is also something that we need to look into, as well as I indicated, economy. So in the brief, Mr. Zonyana, that is my take on how Section 139 is faring, without giving you whether how do we move forward and so forth. Maybe the audience here can kind of give us some ideas, especially also for the papers and the answers that we're trying to find for our work, so that we can also assist municipalities. I thank you.
Thanks a lot. And for the purpose of the conversation, as I usually call you, I'll call you Sismiki to make it easy for me. And we are raising quite very important points as we transition to Mr. Jakala, who will be coming in shortly. But I just want to probably lash on probably 2 or 3 areas that you touched on. The issue of Section 154 support, which again, you correctly raise it on, are we doing the right things when we say, as provincial governments, as national government, are we really targeting that particular support to ensure that as we provide the support, we are solving the problems that the municipalities are facing? And secondly, another pertinent point that you raise, yes, we've got the financial recovery plans, and you made a specific reference to a 200+ page. And I concur with you on that one, because my first assignment on financial recovery plans was way back in 2013 or 2014 with Swellendam Municipality, where, for an example, I did not have a clue what was a financial recovery plan. I've never seen one, but when provincial government again decided to intervene in Swellendam then, which was more a softer intervention because it was not in terms of Section 139 of the Constitution, but more in terms of Section 137 of the Municipal Finance Management Act. As we are developing that recovery plan, which formed the basis of the framework we used in Oudtshoorn, one thing I stood steadfast on was, it's not going to be more than 100 pages, which is the financial recovery plan itself. I think we ended up just plus 60 pages of that recovery plan, and probably some other time we'll talk about Swellendam as well in future. The recovery plan of Oudtshoorn, looking at what I presented, the success that has been demonstrated to the success. Also, that recovery plan was plus 60 pages, but it managed to deliver the type of the intervention, the type of the activities that really can change or turn the municipality around. So we used the same framework, which also supplements the issue you raised, or the concern, to say it's one thing to have quantity in these particular documents, but are they addressing, for an example, the real issues that we should be dealing with? And thirdly, as I transition to you, Mr. Jagala, is the point you are raising, Sismiki, to say you can't expect the very same people to solve the problem that they created. And if you look at the Oudtshoorn case, as I presented, one of the first things that provincial government of the Western Cape did was, all those who were acting in positions, they must go back to their positions. And if they had any irregularities, they were charged, but then brought in an acting accounting officer from a totally different municipality, an acting chief financial officer, as I've indicated, from the same local municipality that the accounting officer came from. And then they worked as a team to then drive that particular implementation of the intervention itself, but also the financial recovery plan. And as I give you, Mr. Jagala, one of the things, specifically when the powers of the council were taken away from the council and conferred to the administrator, was that the administrator would only report on a quarterly basis to council, as I've indicated, the council had no decision-making power. But the fact that it was not dissolved was more the risk analysis at that point in time to say it's not going to help to rebuild the institution itself. Let's rather think innovatively. At that point, it was more thinking out of the box to say how best can we handle this intervention without being disruptive. So really the points that we are raising as concerns are the real issues up to this day when these interventions come into effect. And we perhaps need to try quite a different way of handling these interventions. How do we think innovatively? How do we think in a systemic way in trying to turn the situation around, but also ensuring that the municipalities themselves do function and do serve the people that they are responsible for. Mr. Jagala, you are also involved in some academic work, as I believe, specifically around this particular point. Just share with us your inputs, your comments on this particular subject. And then after you, we will be taking some comments and inputs that we could be having from the audience. Over to you, sir.
No, thank you very much, Zolani, and for the invitation, firstly, from Future Cities Africa. And let me thank you for this opportunity. And also let me also greet all the panel members and also all the attendees to the webinar. I think yes, my name is Andy Lejakala. I think I've got a finance background in terms of local government, having started my local government in the city of Johannesburg, within the billing area. I went to Tshwane as the CFO of Tshwane Municipality, and I had the pleasure to work with the Western Cape Provincial Treasury, also with the Gauteng Provincial Treasury, who also through Section 154 of the Constitution, seconded me to Mfuleni Local Municipality as the CFO. I think just having I'm currently doing my doctorate in business administration. It's at an early stage. 2 weeks ago, I think last month, I just got my the approval of my research proposal, and the topic of my research proposal has changed significantly. However, it's still within the framework of how do we address the issue that leads to Section 139. So my research proposal is states that the title is a framework to address challenges facing Gauteng municipalities in financial distress to ensure suitable service delivery. Now, somebody will ask, what does financial distress have to do with Section 139 intervention? In my research, I came across a research gap that we have been identified, that there's a plethora of work that has been done on Section 139 of the Constitution as an intervention in local government. However, when you look at Section 139 in terms of the value chain, it is the last resort. Now, if you look at the definition of a financial distress in terms of the Municipal Financial Management Act, it defines financial distress in terms of two categories. The first one is a serious financial problem, as described in the Municipal Financial Management Act, as per Section 138. And the second one is the serious and persistent breach of financial commitments. Now, when you look at those two definitions, if you have a municipality that is on financial distress, The one talks about serious financial problems, and the other one talks about a financial crisis, which will lead to the municipality unable to meet its obligation. Now, one of the papers that we came across is to understand what is a dysfunctional municipality, because we use this word loosely. What do we mean when the municipality is dysfunctional? And one of the scholars explained it quite succinctly, defines to say that the minute the municipality is unable to meet objects of Section 152 of the Constitution, it can be rendered it's dysfunctional. And therefore, part of that dysfunctionality of it talks about inability in terms of the objects of inability to deliver sustainable service delivery. If you are unable to deliver sustainable service delivery, therefore you don't have the financial resources to do it. Hence, the topic that I chose, links quite nicely with the issue of Section 139 intervention. As I've indicated, Section 139 is the last resort, and there is no research that has been done to demonstrate what has been done in terms of the monitoring. Chapter 2 of the Municipal Financial Management Act talks about the role of provincial and national treasury in terms of monitoring. Now, we submit MSCOA reports. We submit reports to National Treasury, Provincial Treasury. We submit reports to all the provincial COCTAs, so that they can be able to monitor what we are doing. And the next stage is terms of there is no substantive research work that has been done in terms of Section 154, which is the support, and that is given to municipalities. And furthermore, the support, I must say, Section 154, with my experience, especially at Mfuleni, it's viewed as an event that I must produce a report on Section 154. What has the province done? And I know that, for example, councillors at Mfuleni were saying that, what has the province done, in terms of 154? Why are we under administration? But 154 is an event. It's not an event, it's a process. It's an ongoing process. And now, in the event that the provincial government can demonstrate that through reports that indeed we have given support, we have monitored, we have given support, the support has failed, then Section 139 kicks in. And what we came across, on the research on the proposal that I've submitted, is the fact that of the Section 139 interventions, there's been a lot of litigations against it by the provincial by the municipalities against the provincial government. And the latest one was the first one that went to the Constitutional Court, which was the one of the city of Tshwane. So immediately when the council is litigating against something against the intervention, it is doomed to fail, because already you are moving from a point where you are saying that I am not happy with what you are doing. So now what you came across as well is the fact that while there is support that is being given by provincial government and national government, there has been reluctance in certain municipalities to accept that support. And hence it leads to the outer issue regarding Section 139 intervention. So the question that I'm trying to address in terms of my study is to say, is to understand is that based on the value chain of monitoring, support, and intervention, how do we ensure that the municipalities there's an approach that will ensure that the municipalities are taken away from a point of financial distress. Now, my fellow panelist member has raised an issue regarding external and internal factors that has an impact on the financial sustainability of municipalities. For example, if there's disinvestment in terms of, for example, in the Vaal, where there was disinvestment of the steel industry, it had an impact in terms of the sustainability of those municipalities. However, there's work that has been done by Wagner that states that while there are external factors, internal factors have a material impact in terms of sustainability of local government. And one of those internal factors becomes political infighting, financial mismanagement, financial ill-discipline, because you can say that, yes, the economy is declining. However, you cannot have a situation where the economy is declining, your revenue source is declining, however, you are pushing your expenditure. So that is where the issue of internal financial ill-discipline comes in, because you need to be able to find a way of stabilizing those. Yes. So it kind of defines those two areas within the external and the internal factors that has an influence in terms of financial distress, and in terms of what can have an impact on Section 139 intervention. Now, I want to go back to your presentation, Mr. ZZ, in terms of Oudtshoorn's case study. And if I can look at, for example, at the legislative framework in terms of how Western Cape Provincial Government approached the Section 139 intervention. My understanding is that the Section 139 of Oudtshoorn was a mandatory intervention. Now, from a legislative framework, the minute it is a mandatory intervention, it is no longer the responsibility of provincial government to develop a financial recovery plan. It is strictly not even delegated to provinces. It is the responsibility of the municipal financial recovery services as legislated in the MFMA. However, at that point in time, MFRS did not have the capacity to draw up those FRPs. So I'm saying that from example, from a legislative point of view, the provincial government could be found wanting, because they imposed a plan that they were not supposed to have drafted. It was supposed to have been drafted by the National Treasury through the MFRS. That's the first issue. However, what became very, very innovative, and I think it's something that must be taken into consideration when we roll out other interventions, is how provincial government in the Western Cape saw a way of ensuring that they capacitate the municipality while implementing the FRP. And that is very, very, very innovative, because you cannot expect an FRP to be implemented by the same people that failed to ensure that the basic financial disciplines and infrastructure-related disciplines are not adhered to. So that was innovative to bring other people from other neighboring municipalities. And I think that is where the concept of the district development model comes into play, where you pull resources from the district to be able to support. However, if you've got a weak district, are you able to pull those resources? I think that becomes my first second critique of the appreciation of the Oudtshoorn study. I think one of the issues that we must look at when we look at these studies, I know that as finance people, we tend to look at the cash at the financial aspect of it, in terms of the cash and cash equivalents, the cash on hand, the current ratios as stipulated in the Circular 71 reporting. However, has those resources that we've seen increasing, did they translate into sustainable service delivery on the ground? And that becomes something that must be looked at. Hence, I agree with the holistic approach in terms of how the intervention must work. And the last point before I step down, it's regarding the issue regarding the reasons, the reasons for intervention. And you made a point, regarding when these interventions take place at the end of the political period. National Treasury, in their state of the state of local government finances, makes a concession that with the interventions, the Section 139 interventions are not implemented according to what is being intended by the legislation. It's a serious concession, by meaning the fact that it is not being done as by the spirit of what the Constitution envisaged. So it's something that we need to look at in terms of the framework, because there could have been political dynamics that I play. For example, let me use it for example in Tshwane. There was a soft coalition between EFF and DA, and the province was the African National Congress, which is the governing party. So there was a clash immediately in terms of the political dynamics. So therefore it's something that we need to look at in terms of how do we ensure that those the intention of the legislation is, in terms of intervention, is successfully is implemented in terms of that what is it's meant for. And the last point, National Treasury makes a concession, and I'm going back to the support, that with all the support that National Treasury has given the municipalities, we still find municipalities that are currently in financial distress, even the metros, by the way, and we still find municipalities that are under Section 139 intervention, with all those interventions. Now, the issue that must be looked at, and that's what my research comes into play, what is the genesis that leads to 139, that leads to financial distress, but eventually it leads to 139? And how can we be able to do things differently to ensure that this is sustainable? In the Italian local municipalities, one of the things that has been made by one of the researchers states that the local government in Europe makes a concession and a statement that, and he posits and says that if an intervention in the local government, seeing that local government is fiscally decentralized, in the event that there is no financial impetus, financial seeding, financial injection within that intervention, it is doomed to fail. Because you are expecting and municipalities with a deteriorated balance sheet to turn around the situation and deliver services. Now, National Treasury is against bailouts of municipalities, which in my research, I'm also want to rebut that. And I know Zolani in the Western Cape, we even suggested that we must have some fund that will be used for intervention in municipalities, because in the absence of those financial injection, it is not sustainable. And I want to make an example, which is a great example that has been made by national government in Mfuleni. In Mfuleni local municipality, Mfuleni has got a situation regarding the sewer and the water challenges. Now, the Ministry of Water and Sanitation, when they intervened also with their balance sheet. And we can see that there are changes that are taking place. Now that is the model. And by the way, when they came with the balance sheet, they don't transfer the money into the municipality. They keep the money in their control. And the only thing that the municipality will do is to account for it in terms of the improvement in their assets. So it's something that we need to look at in terms of financial injections to capitalize the balance sheet of those municipalities, especially rural municipalities that don't have the revenue sources, especially municipalities where we've seen a decline in their local economies that leads to the financial, the Section 139. That leads to financial distress and eventually leads to intervention, and which is an inability for them to meet Section 152 of the Constitution. Let me leave it at that, Mr. Zonyane. Thank you very much.
No, thanks a lot, Mr. Jagala, for that mouthful input. And for the purpose of the audience, today, it was just a masterclass. And again, I'm glad that we've got only one question. In fact, it's two questions in one that has been asked. Because of time, we will deal with that. And also, I believe there are some comments that we will just go through in terms of the conversation today. But couple of things that you are raising, Mr. Jagala, that I want also for the benefit of the public to say we've got at National Treasury the Municipal Financial Recovery Services, which you are correct. In terms of the mandatory intervention, that becomes their space. We had engagements, and those engagements were coordinated by myself, requesting the MFRS to come and assist us in the development of the financial recovery plan. We got the go-ahead from National Treasury, and if we like, we can say that was the delegation of that particular function from National Treasury to Provincial Treasury. And the comfort from National Treasury, as I referred to Swellendam earlier on, we have done a discretionary financial recovery plan in Swellendam a few years before. They saw the value of that particular recovery plan, how it was developed, how it was executed. So they felt comfort to say, Provincial Treasury, Western Cape, you are more than capable. As much as legislatively this is our function, we have trust in you that you will do a better job. It also goes back now to the issue of how do we collaborate as government institutions? How do we exchange notes? How do we keep the faith in each other as we try to solve these particular problems? And as I go to the question on funding the interventions, and you are correct to say, number one, if you don't have a balance sheet that will support the intervention itself. Believe me, you won't succeed. And I'll share a link to the financial recovery plan of Oudtshoorn, where as provincial government, we identified the activities that will give effect to the turnaround, but where we can, and it was within our ambit as provincial government then, we provided funding that was transferred now also with ease and without fear, because at management level, there were resources that we had faith in, that we trusted. You are correct to say it's one thing to intervene, come up with a financial recovery plan. If you are not willing, both as provincial governments, as you correctly say, and national government departments, to say, where I can, this is my balance sheet, these are the projects that I will support as part of this turnaround. That's perhaps one of the ways that will really assist us in terms of really turning the municipalities around. And going to the question from Untombi, I'll also just check some of the comments, and I'm looking at the time, given the topical issue that we have, because it is my wish that we finish at 12. Untombi is asking, in the case of Oudtshoorn, what successful reforms were institutionalized within the municipalities' political and practices in order to sustain the positive outcomes of the financial recovery plan? Dealing with that part of the question, Ms. Ndombi, as I indicated, the provincial government was clear from the very onset, and as Mr. Dagala said, you can't have the same people who created the problem to be the same people who then come up with solutions. So taking the resources from one of the local municipalities and make them the overseers of the implementation, because both the accounting officer and the CFO ultimately post the 2016 local government elections, they were then appointed full-time in Oudtshoorn Local Municipality. But when it comes to policies and other practices within the institution, one of the things we did was to review every single policy that existed. Not only the review, how do you take those policies to the institution, to the people that exist there, because you'll be surprised. In municipalities, we've got all these policies, procedures, but an ordinary staff who must execute and implement, they don't have an understanding of those policies. So as part of the holistic approach, that's what we did to say, let's review, but not only review, let the municipal officials, let the council take ownership of those particular policies, because at the end of the day, they must implement, not provincial government and not national government. That had its own spin-offs. But again, you look at the capacity. How do you support, as Mr. Jagala has correctly said, in terms of Section 154, and Usis Migi also referred to Section 154. What type of support do you package to build the capacity that should then ensure that the financial recovery plan is implemented? You also say, and I can reflect if there were governance reforms introduced, and how did they improve decision-making and accountability in the long term? The provincial government was clear to say, if council doesn't pull its weight towards the implementation of the financial recovery plan, there's nothing that stopped now, as new as it was in 2016, to dissolve the council. That was one key thing that was clear to say, you might think as a council, you've got 5 years, but if this financial recovery plan doesn't achieve what we all agreed it seeks to address, we will go for the dissolution of the council. That was more like a control tool. That then also assisted, because in terms of the administrator that was there, the handover process from the administrator to the council in terms of the work that has been done, the successes within that short period of the year were then transferred to the new council that came in 2016. And the new council came in with stability at executive management, because as I've indicated, the acting MM then, when we started the intervention, and acting CFO, ultimately, they got employed by Oudtshoorn Local Municipality. So those are some of the governance issues that the provincial government was clear on, to say, this is part of the package. If you don't take it, then we still have the lever to take you out of the system and bring in councillors who will then form the council that will oversee the implementation of this financial recovery plan. And again, colleagues, questions are coming through. We've noted them, but I just want to go to some of the comments that also came in, I would say, earlier on, but also firstly acknowledging yourselves, specifically our regulars, in terms of attendance and participation, but also it will be amiss if I don't perhaps mention just few people. Mr. Daniel Nolte, from one of our partners in the work we do. He runs the Center for Municipal Asset Management. Thank Omden for being with us. I saw earlier on we had John Pierre, JP from George Municipality, who is the Chief Audit Executive there, but also chairing some of the critical governance structures like your CAE Forum, your Risk Forum in the Western Cape. We appreciate your support, my brother. And I saw earlier on Umbusi, who was also instrumental in one of our webinars earlier this year. And these webinars are that open to say we invite the practitioners, people who understand what we are trying to solve. And I see in the audience many of my former colleagues. I won't mention you by names. It's great that you've joined, and some of you I was with in the SIGFARO conference that I referred to earlier on. That's the only way we can continue, I would say, building functional institutions. And I just want to pick perhaps one or two comments, specifically those that came earlier on. There was a comment from Chief Farero Mukwebo, who says, I think implementation of these solutions tailored to specific context and needs of each municipality can contribute to a more effective and sustainable approach to addressing the challenges associated with these interventions in the failing municipalities. And I could not agree more with that. And Omden also came in to say the focus appears to be more on service delivery only, but Section 52 of the Constitution requires municipalities to ensure socio-economic development, service delivery, safety, health issues, environmental issues, and most importantly, participation of the public or the communities. And if the failure is right across, as Omden is saying, if you don't address any of these issues as you deal with the interventions, and again, you'll be failing. And it's correct, Omden, because Mr. Jagala touched on that. And I normally say the finance issues or challenges that we see are a symptom of the governance failure within the institution. Therefore, as we solve these problems, if we don't get to the root cause, we will never be able to solve the problems that our municipalities are faced with. And there was also a comment from Pitso Zwane, yes, one of my former colleagues, welcome my brother, saying City of Tshwane case law has set the basics to be in place on interventions. Nicely unpacked, that's to you, Mr. Jagala, which is in terms of your input around that. In terms of Yuntombi, the comment itself, because we've already dealt with your question, I'll just skip your other questions, specifically around section 154, so that we can take wider questions from the audience. And there is one also from Mduduzi Madonsela. Thanks. And again, one of our regulars that says, when the administrator is mandated to turn things around in a municipality, and as the community is convinced that the mandate is not achieved after a year, 2 years and above, what is required to be done since there is no change, even though the administrator is on site? Here's the thing, an administrator is supposed to be there for a short period, because if you intervene, you dissolve the council, you appoint the administrator. There is a time frame for by-elections so that the new council can be elected. The moment the new council comes in, the administrator ceases to exist in that particular municipality. But again, we've seen strange arrangements. I'm saying strange. It is to deal with the current situation that we are currently having. Because, for an example, if you look at what the National Cabinet has done in some of the municipalities, where they have appointed what they call the National Cabinet representatives, which technically are the administrators working with council, working with administrators. In that case, there ought to be a periodic review of those. In this case, we are talking the National Cabinet representatives. Are they delivering? If not, what are the issues? How best can they be supported in terms of the capacity that they need for them to be able to implement their roles and responsibilities? Because it's one thing to have them, but if you don't build support teams around them, believe you me, you can have them for 5 years. At the end of the 5-year term, they will show you nothing, because there was never a support system to tackle exactly the issues that you are raising. And again, we will not be taking all the comments, because this is an interesting topic, and perhaps we will have a follow-up next year as part of our point planning to ensure that even the questions that we have, the comments that came through that we cannot deal with today, we can then be in a position to continue with these conversations, continue engaging on these topical issues in terms of trying to change the trajectory of our local government. And for the purpose of the questions and comments, because I also need to give my panelists their parting shots before we can actually call it a day today, without really discounting your inputs, discounting your comments. But as I always say, we collate these comments, questions and inputs, even those that we don't get to, so that they can inform our future activities, our future webinars, on how do we then begin to address these particular questions and challenges that we are faced with. It's not all lost, but then as you keep on following us in terms of the work that we do as the Municipal Edge, Future Cities Africa, and as I've indicated, various institutions like SIGFARO, SALGA, and SIAGOL, which I'll be talking to in terms of also their events. These are the things that we're working towards solving to ensure that we've got viable municipalities that can really deliver for the benefit of our communities. I would like to give my two panelists, based on these comments and inputs that have come through, also to share their parting shots. And then thereafter, I will be flagging a couple of some events which are very important in transforming our local government. And then I'll just share the details at that particular point, and then we'll just close the webinar. And the presentation will be shared because I've seen the request. But as I've committed, I will update the presentation with some of the data. but also as the presentation that we'll be receiving, there will be that case study of Oudtshoorn, so that when you have time, you can go through it and get an understanding of the entire process flow that led to, I'll say, that success that we agreed upon. Let me firstly give you, Sis Mickey, 2 to 3 minutes just in closing, and also your take on what has come through today. Similarly, after Sis Mickey and Mr. Jagala, you will do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Sonyane. I'm learning every day. The discussions here have really equipped me, and particularly from the financial colleagues who are very knowledgeable of how to look into that area of work. In addition to what we've done today, we've actually elaborated into our challenges in terms of the interventions and how we interpret those. I think the colleague, Mr. Jagala, went deeper into that as to how we interpret the Section 139, which matters a lot, considering that our important stakeholder there and the leader there being COGTA is a cooperative governance institution. So with that, then I think that cooperative governance should lead the interventions into the municipality, considering all other stakeholders that are playing part, the bigger part of the municipalities. And the bigger stakeholder being the community, as you rightfully said, that consideration should be given to how the community feels about the interventions and what those interventions bring to the society. Because basically democratizing local government was an issue of addressing the social issues, the economical issues, as well as the well-being of the community. So with the community participating fully with their businesses, we then therefore can leverage there and see whether we are succeeding in what we are doing in the individual in different municipalities. And most of all, I would like also to just highlight this, that the fragmentation in supporting municipalities is a bit of a concern, because it tends to bring that idea that we are not united in supporting municipalities. There needs to be an effort to collaborate, and we support with the same and same understanding of the drive of what we are doing. Because there's a tendency that when a municipality is announced as requiring Section 139 intervention, every other sector department
We've lost you a bit, Sismiki.
We all went to that ground to try and make sure our compliance material is adhered to, which not all the time has to solve the problem. You miss me?
No, it's okay. It could have been on my
hear me?
side, eh? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So in closing, I was saying that maybe we should also consider how we intervene in terms of Section 139, because as we already elaborated that here, that that time is the last resort to intervene in terms of Section S139 is the last resort. Therefore, we need to coordinate properly so that we see that that is a success. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Mr. Jagala, your closing remarks before I get to the last segment of this webinar.
Well, thank you very much. I think based on the comments that I've seen here, and I think I agree with the colleagues, that says that the intervention is not a quick fix, and I think the silver bullet lies in the cooperative governance, and I agree with my panelists. It lies within the cooperative governance and the spirit of the cooperative government in terms of monitoring, support, and intervention being the last resort. And I think if you can master those two in terms of the support before we even get to the one on intervention. And I think also we need to be able to move away from a silo approach in terms of intervention to a more integrated approach. And hence, recently, National Treasury is looking at a three-phased approach in terms of drafting and developing of the FRP, which talks about the rescue phase, stabilization phase, and the sustainability phase. However, the issue regarding integration becomes very important because integration with cooperation, because one of the issues that is being raised by the panelists, sorry, by the attendees here is that, National Treasury drafts a FRP, Provincial Treasury approves it, municipality implements it. However, if there is no cooperation and integration, it's doomed to fail. So I think that there is more that can be done in terms of work, and I think the work that is being done by future cities in terms of these dialogues, conversation, will also give us a situation where we look at what is the best approach in terms of how we can be able to ensure that we have a sustainable solution in terms of intervention, because there is a report that states that 60% of municipalities that went on intervention go back to intervention. So on that note, I think, Chair, through you, I think the issue of integration, cooperative governance, and also the issue of sustainability of support from the departments becomes very important, so that we can be able to ensure that we have, because I want to talk about avoidance of intervention rather getting to that last resort of intervention, and it is through the support and monitoring. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot to both of you, my esteemed panelists. And I think when I chose you for this topic, I knew the richness that will come out of it, but also what we pride ourselves from the Municipal Edge and Future Cities Africa. It's more the empowerment aspect of what we do. Let's have at least, it could be one or two or even three in the audience who say, I've learned a lot. And again, today, it was one of the panelists who shared exactly that, to say we learn every day, but again, it's what we do with the learning that we do. Thanks a lot for availing yourselves, and I believe as we traversed this journey, we will continue to have these conversations in trying to shape the future of our municipalities. As I've indicated, there are some few upcoming events, as I've indicated here, which again, in trying to take professionalization seriously, building the capacity, as we often talk about. SIGFARO has got the very last event of this year on MSCOA, which will be taking place in Durban you can go to their website. All the registration details are there. That's taking place on the 4th to the 5th of December 2023. That is done with the support of or with National Treasury. If you are in that space, I can tell you that's a workshop that you don't want to miss, especially given the conference that we just came from, which ended yesterday. There are lots of developments. There is a lot of information and knowledge sharing among the practitioners because we come from different municipalities, different provincial government departments and national government departments. But when we come together, we share those experiences, which then results to some of the participants and attendees living or these particular events better officials, let me put it that way. And also we've got an event on the same dates as the SIGFARO dates, but focusing on something totally different, offered by the Chartered Institute of Audit Governance, Oversight and Leadership, the South African chapter of CIAGOL, specifically focusing on internal controls and finance issues. As you can see the details there. And again, if you go to the website, you can get the details there. Encourage people you know might have interest in these particular topics to please register, participate, contribute as we try to really change the trajectory of our municipalities. And lastly, the Ethics Institute that has got a workshop on the 29th of November. Just that it's not clear here, but again, if you go to their website, you'll have the form there for registration and the details regarding that particular workshop. And you'll see also these events in our upcoming Municipal Edge magazine, which is still in production. And let me acknowledge some of the contributors that I've seen in the audience, that these events will also be featured in the Municipal Edge so that we can communicate with the wider public on these particular events. Yes, also SALGA, I mentioned, we also work closely. They've got also, I think, some few events for the remainder of this year. But then up to this point, we could not really get their flyer like we have done with these institutions that I just flighted. And again, there are other institutions that have got similar programs. As I've indicated, if we are serious about professionalization, we are serious about capacity development, we are serious about building the capacity and capability of state. These are type of initiatives that you would like to be part of in sharpening and enhancing your capacity as you deal with municipalities on a day-to-day. From my side, Zolani Zonyane, and also from Municipal Edge, Dan and the team at Future Cities Africa, but most importantly, our audience and partners, and as I've indicated, my panelists, let me thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedules, for being with us in this morning as we try to navigate this landscape of local government. Thank you. And we've got our last webinar coming in November. We hope to see you there. And from today, let's adjourn here. And thanks a lot for your time. We will see you in November as we close off the year. Thank you very much and goodbye.